of the young guys, who is most likely to end up being a star? And I think that Alex Sarr is the clear answer.
The draft pick that they're going to take this year. The Wizards have traded Kyle Kuzma to the Milwaukee Bucks. They get Kris Middleton in return along with A.J. Johnson, who was a first-round pick last year. Similar type of deal for Jonas Valanciunas. Valanciunas headed to Sacramento for 2 seconds. And Sidy Cissoko, who is a 20-year-old Frenchman. Yep. Lynnell, the Washington Wizards now have 6 players who are 21 years or younger. 6.
Yeah.
What do you make of this? Where are you, King Wizards fan over there? I mean, for a guy who's the youngest in charge movement, do you feel threatened by the Wizards youth movement? That's really the question. You're not the youngest anymore, man. If you were on the Wizards,
I'd be old.
You'd be old as hell.
I'd be considered old.
I'm basically dead.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm like stuck between a rock and a hard place because I understand what you have to do to get where you want to go, where we want to go as a fan base and like media members that cover this. You want the Wizards to be a championship contender at some point. This is starting to turn into Title Town. Commanders are going to be championship contenders for years to come. The Capitals are a championship contender this year. The Nats, if they ever choose to spend money, will be a championship contender. And then there's the Wizards. So I like the youth movement. I think it's good if they are going to be developing good habits while playing. And I think what you've seen under the guidance of Brian Keefe, going back to last year, I might add, is it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of accountability that exists within the Wizards locker room. And when I say locker room, I mean on the floor, coaches included. Like, how uncompetitive they've been is like not a part of the rebuild to me. Like, you're not supposed to go out and get drubbed by 35. You're not supposed to be down 25 at the end of a quarter to Toronto. And on
a regular basis.
On a regular basis, right? It happens every now and then, right?
It happens all the time in the NBA, but it doesn't happen to the same team
every day,
14 times in 25 games. Which is those numbers are made up, but they're not that made up.
So that's my problem, is they're not competitive enough. And I point at Brian Keefe because like you have the ability to send messages, which he doesn't. It feels like now everybody that you talk to like around Cap One like says that he is a yeller behind the scenes and that he actually does get in people's behind. It doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like
the thing is though, like,
and I'm not saying they just need some yeller aggressive coach. Like that's
right.
not it.
It's like, are you reaching the players? Is the question.
Think he is.
That's that is the fundamental question. And this is something that I have been chewing on as I have like emerged from my Commander's hole and started to watch a little bit more over the last couple of weeks. And just like because in these games, like it's not like they're just missing shots.
No, and that's what they want you to believe.
No, it's more than that. There is a lack of competitive fire. At the same time, I think they are learning how to compete in the NBA with a bunch of guys that are stupidly young. Like being 19 in the NBA is hard.
Yes.
Like we think of 19-year-olds in the NBA as LeBron James, as Kevin Durant, as Wemby, who can come in and compete because typically those are the only 19-year-olds that get on the floor. Most 19-year-olds are on the bench, not doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
Or
AJ Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Right.
And they're like the very top picks and they're for bad teams, but you don't have 4 of them playing meaningful minutes on a regular basis. There's only so much damage that they can do as 19-year-olds. Yeah. And because the Wizards have gone so heavily into that, and by the way, the guy that's leading their possessions, I love JP. I love Jordan Poole. I enjoy like hell talking to him. I think he cares and like that's great. But he's a loose cannon as a basketball player. He does some funny stuff sometimes.
Yes.
Some stuff where you're like, okay, I need 10% more Malcolm Brogdon than you, Jordan Poole.
Yeah.
And I think that reality like makes the basketball team fairly loose. And it's why, by the way, they play completely differently when Brogdon is back. Because Brogdon is like, hi, I'm an adult. We're going to be organized today. Everyone clean up your room and then let's go to practice.
It's like the dad of the team.
Right.
Which is cool. And I'm glad that you brought up JP because I remember last year as he was getting crushed, pat on our backs. Me and you felt like we were the guys that were defending him a little bit and trying to get the general public to understand, hey, he just got punched in the face in front of the entire world, and he's now been shipped across the country. There's a kid
and
that
also
grew up
his
in
numbers are
Wisconsin.
way better than you think they are.
Yeah, he's playing his tail off this year. Like he's he's honestly your best trade chip right now. But because of his age, Craig, I'm at the point where I'm looking at Jordan Poole, and me and Danny actually just went back and forth about this. Age, contract, production, I'm almost looking at him like, can he be a part of your young future moving forward, or is he nothing but a trade chip? I just think you need somebody to get Jordan to rein it in. I don't know if Malcolm Brogdon and him have the relationship to where he could talk to JP, because right now JP's the vet. And the young Bub, Keyshawn, Bilal, him and Bilal call each other twins. They're like very good friends.
Yeah.
He has done a really good job taking the young guys under his wing. And depending on what you think about Jordan Poole, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's been a lot more for the positive because this is a champion, right? And I know it seems like it was a long time ago, and some people, tend to forget how impactful he was to their championship. He is a good guy to have around. I just wonder, does he have the right temperament to be in this position? And what I mean by that is the best player on a rebuilding team, when you're trying to encourage other guys to take the game seriously and play hard, there's some things that he does that I don't really care for, but it's kind of the position that you're in. With the playing so many young guys, Craig, I mentioned it at the start of our conversation, you don't want to create bad habits.
Right.
And I think that's where we kind of, no offense to Keyshawn George, I think he's playing well when he gets his opportunities. I love them letting him handle the ball at point the other night against Charlotte. I shouldn't see 19-year-old Keyshawn George arguing with a damn official and not getting back on defense. That's something, if you're Brian Keefe, come here, sit next to me. And it's easy. You sit down, you talk to him, boom, it's over. Like, no one gets benched. That's why I say it's like there's no consequences on this team.
Well, and that's the thing is minutes is definitely always the number one motivator for players,
sure,
outside of money, right? And the money's not changing for these young guys. Like, they're on the first year of the rookie deals, whatever. So the idea of benching a guy, but also then you lose out on reps, and for them, reps are everything. So there is a balance, and also you can only play the bench card so many times before you actually just have to sit a dude down for an entire game. And is the front office on board with that? What does that do to the relationship? These things are, I have been around long enough. I'm going to old man the hell out of this. I have been around long enough to understand how complicated these things are. And I do not envy Brian Keefe. He has an incredibly tough job.
Sure.
I also do not know that the idea that there isn't someone out there that could be doing it better is becoming harder and harder to swallow when they've got 7 wins and it is February 5th. It's just hard. And this is where, Valanciunas was a great vet for them, especially for Alex Sarr. This is where Kris Middleton, the next 20 whatever hours, or really the next 2 weeks, become fascinating. Does he play here, or do they buy him out? Because that'd be a tough pill to swallow. I would want to. Well, I mean, if he wants, the thing is,
relationship with Malcolm too is what I also was looking at. Maybe he doesn't want to get bought out. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, but Malcolm could also get traded in the next 20 minutes. Who knows?
Very true.
But I think Middleton is the kind of guy that has because Kuz is also an a one of a kind character, right? JP is unique in his personality and big fan of it. Kyle, there's a ton of great stuff about Kyle Kuzma and very involved in the community. There's a lot of great stuff about Kyle, but he's a very unique personality with the fashion and all these different things. And again, I'm not saying those things are negative. It's just he doesn't have a workman's attitude in terms of how he carries himself.
Yes,
right.
Day to day.
He's got a lot of other stuff because he's gotten to a point in his career where he's earned it. That is not to say when he's at work he's not very workmanlike, and that I'm overstating this to say I am not hating on Kyle Kuzma getting to live his full life as Kyle Kuzma, NBA star. Good for him. Yes. If I was Kyle Kuzma, I would not be wearing the stuff he can because I cannot pull it off. But I would have my ways that I would want to make sure that I'm maximizing my time as an NBA star. But I do think Kris Middleton and the way he goes about his business is a great example to have in the building. Yeah. And I think that a 33-year-old, key part of a championship team, older guy, true adult level. Kris Middleton is the oldest player on the team the second he walks in.
Yes.
And there is a different status. And it's not like he's going to come over and be like, this is my team, I'm taking over, I'm the leader now. He's just going to go about his work. And they're going to see a guy that made it from the G League to be a 3-time All-Star, win a championship, have a 12-year and counting NBA career. And I think that kind of example, especially considering how many wings they've got that are young, guys Bub's a point, but he's kind of a point wing type of player, a guy who's going to handle the ball a ton. And Middleton is a guy that can take possessions off of Poole's plate, by the way. Keyshawn, these guys, now Cissoko coming in, AJ Johnson coming in, these guys can see the way Kris Middleton not only handles his business and handles just playing NBA basketball, but goes about all of it. And I think that different type of perspective, someone who's a little bit more nose to the grindstone in terms of their personality, is probably a good thing to have around.
And I agree with everything that you say. And that's the one area where I'll point to Mike Winger, Will Dawkins, and Travis Schlenk and say, hey, okay, you've been very vocal in telling us we're going to bottom out and you're going to go young. When you drastically go young the way the Wizards have, you have to have the right veterans around, or it's going to be a clown show in your locker room. It's going to be a clown show product on the floor, and I think we're starting to see kind of what that really was. There's no offense to Kuz or Jordan Poole, but they're not like Taj Gibson being around last year. That's the type of vet you want. And it's hard in sports when your leaders aren't contributing, too. That's the other thing. Anthony Gill is the consummate professional.
Yeah.
Goes about his work all the time, but how valuable is
and he's
what
the
AG
guy that's going to bring,
says?
hey, I'm going to the gym. You're coming with me.
You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
how valuable is what AG says when AG don't get minutes?
Right.
That's the other.
All due respect to Anthony
You know what I'm
Gill, you're Anthony Gill. And Anthony Gill would probably laugh at that. He'd be like, yeah, nope, I'm Anthony Gill. And he has done a tremendous job of
that's why they
carving
keep
out
him
a
around,
career for him, 100%. And multiple regimes have now kept him around.
Exactly.
Multiple coaching staffs have been like, I want that dude as a connector on my team.
Yeah.
But it's different than, you're a with the Commander. And it's so interesting watching these rebuilds. And I was joking about this earlier, Lynnell. If I am Winger and Dawkins, I'm like, good job, Commanders. Can
Bob come over?
Well, as citizens of Bob Myers, that'd be funny.
Yeah.
But as citizens of the district, good job, our brethren of your success. But screw you, bleepity bleepers, for getting everyone thinking you can do this in a year.
No,
but I think one of the things that was so magical in the Commanders' run, obviously, is the role of Bobby and Zach. And it is different when your vets are gold jacket type of guys who can still get it done. Maybe not at the level they used to. And we're going to see what Kris Middleton still has in the tank here. He's been battling back from those ankle surgeries in the offseason, and hopefully he is starting to turn the corner a little bit. He's played a little bit more in the last couple of weeks. So hopefully he's starting to turn the corner a little bit and can just be a really good, can he average 17 a game for the rest of the year, right? And that is different than Anthony Gill. And not to say that Anthony Gill doesn't have a role, but if Anthony Gill's telling you something and then you go see Kris Middleton do it and you're like,
it's different.
100% it hits different. 100% it hits different.
I think that's just the spot that Washington's in right now. For the next couple of weeks, I think it's going to be interesting to see, one, this is where Brian Keefe's job is kind of difficult because you got to now learn AJ Johnson. You got to now learn the new Frenchman they brought in.
Sidy Cissoko.
Sidy Cissoko. Say that 10 times fast. You got to learn
Don't
about
challenge me
him,
with a good time.
On the floor and off the floor. And he's got to find what lineups he can throw out there that will keep them competitive while also still fostering that environment of growing young talent.
For sure.
I think that's what's going to be really hard about this. Alex Sarr can't come back quick enough. All the minutes are his at the 5 spot, until
right.
unless he can't
Rashawn
breathe.
Holmes is going to play a whole bunch of minutes.
14, 16. I would put a lot on Alex's plate with that. I think you use this time. Now, he's coming off an injury, so you got to be delicate with it, I guess. But, dude, Alex should be playing 35 minutes a night. This is it's go time now.
He is out tonight, by the way, against the Nets. And we'll get even more updates on kind of what's going on and what the plan is for tonight with Dave coming up in 12 minutes. But in the final few minutes with you here, Lynnell's also got overtime tonight, so you can listen to him starting at 6:30 over on 106.7 The Fan. He was also yelling at Chris from 1 to 4, so if you want to check out the Chris Russell Show podcast, and you want more Lynnell, more youngest in charge, you got it in all the places on demand and live coming up at 6:30. What do you make? This is something I've been chewing on, so we get to spend a few minutes here thinking about this. What do you make of the strategy with these trades? Because with Johnson and Cissoko, they get young players. Cissoko in his second year, Johnson in his first. Basically, he's a quasi first-round pick.
And that's how
as opposed to getting an actual first-round pick. The more I think about it, the more I like it. Where I'm like, hey, yes, you could get the thing that is unknown in the future, or you can get a little bit more known with the same amount of youth. And if you like the player, you like the player. And unless you've seen something in the limited time they've been in the league that makes you change your evaluation. If you like these guys coming out, like, I'm kind of like, go get them. And if teams are willing to give up those guys when they're unwilling to give up actual draft picks, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the philosophy. So when you look at it, I think it's, 5 first-round picks or 6 first-round, 7 maybe, that they brought in the last 2 years.
They're up to, I was texting with someone this morning, and I think he said that they were up to like 27 total draft picks between now and 2031.
How many of them are the first-round picks is what gets interesting. The pick swaps that they have are valuable because Jonas has a player option after next season, so the Bucks may be.
Well, if Jonas opts out, then this whole thing changes.
Right.
With that said, this pick swap is a kind of it's like actually not that complicated. It's hard to say out loud on the radio. Yeah. Basically, is the Blazers, the Wizards, and the Bucks. Those are the 3 picks. They will pick in the order of Bucks. They'll swap the picks around so that the order is the most favorable to Portland, the second most favorable to Washington. So if, let's say, Giannis opts out and the Bucks are terrible, that doesn't really help Washington as much because that pick is going to Portland.
Oh wow, I did not.
So they get the second. They get the second of most favorable pick.
Now that kind of changes the way I look at it a little bit, but like I think from a fan's perspective, and this is how I was looking at it too. When you think rebuild, you think tear down, you think about Oklahoma City getting back all the picks they got, and we're kind of following that model because of Will. So I'm just looking at it from like, where are the first-round picks at? And it's why I get frustrated with them sitting on their hands last year and letting Kuzma kind of dictate things. It seemed like you had a first-round pick.
I'm glad you brought that up. That didn't happen.
So they didn't have a first-round pick on the table for him?
Kuzma did not deny a trade to Dallas.
Not that he
I have a reliable source who told me straight up that is not what happened. The people in the Wizards front office were like, sure, it's a great story about how Kyle wanted to be here. We're not going to go out and correct it. That did not happen.
Either or, it ended up with you not getting back what.
I don't know that deal was.
Got a first-round pick for Kyle. Think about this. You got more for Denny and Gaff. Like, if I would have told you that when Kuz first signed the extension that summer, you would have been like, ain't no way in hell that's happening. So that's how I'm looking at it. It's like,
but that's the thing is like, do you count this pick swap as a first, and do you count AJ Johnson as a first? And if you do, then they got 2 firsts for Kuz. For whatever it's worth, they have obviously their own this year because it's not like they still owe the Knicks a pick, but it's not going to wind up conveying this year.
It feels like that pick has been floating around in the ether for years.
Yeah, it's been like top whatever protected, and the Wizards are like, look how bad we can be. 2026, they have swap rights with Phoenix. So like Phoenix is the key here. For Washington, right?
Yes, they need to bottom out. Do
the Wizards or do the Suns wind up just blowing it all up again, and are they bad? So they have 2026 pick swap rights with Phoenix. They have a bunch of seconds in 25 and 26. 27, they have their own first and 3, 4, 5 extra seconds. 2028, they now have this 2 giant pick swaps. They have a Phoenix, Brooklyn, Philly pick swap situation, and they have this one for Milwaukee and Portland that is today.
Those are interesting teams to have a pick swap with because, like, I can see the Sixers bottoming out sooner rather than later.
If Embiid, like, his knees just don't get better and he retires in 2 years, by 2028. But then it's like, when are they going to be good? And like, this is the thing about this. So let me just quickly go through this and then answer my own question. 2029, they have their own. They also have a Boston, Milwaukee, or Portland. 2030, they have a Golden State top 20 protected and Phoenix pick swap. 2031, that's the last one. So they have their own, but they have multiple seconds in there. So it's a lot of seconds. But here's the thing. With all those picks, nothing says they can't package them together and get up faster somewhere else.
For sure.
And so if you want to take 2 or 3 first-rounders later of a Phoenix, a Brooklyn, a Milwaukee, a Portland, and like say, hey, Team X, who maybe wants something now, we'll give you a couple first-rounders plus this thing you want now, and we'll take on, or we want this better first-rounder more immediately, or we take your young player. So I think they have the war chest. And this isn't just like, hey, they'll be good in 2034 when these draft picks finally hit. We're not going to be waiting that long. This is assets to move in the future. Yeah. And when they're good, and this is the other part of it, to wrap up the totality of the conversation here, let's say in 2029 they are good, and now they're sitting like top of the Eastern Conference, sick, but they need one more piece. Now you got an extra first to trade. Yeah. Now you've got ammo to move when you're good. And that's the hope. Of course, they kind of need to win the draft lottery the next 2 years for that to be the case.
And are the basketball gods going to reward you going out and losing by 40 on a nightly basis?
Probably. They rewarded the Sixers back in the day with Joel Embiid.
Pistons, though. See, that's my thing. Someone's got to turn into a star. And right now, I think that's where the question is. Of the young guys, who is most likely to end up being a star? And I think Alex Sarr is the clear answer.
The draft pick that they're going to take this year.
Yeah. Well,
that's the thing. They're not done building
yet. The 5th pick. And then who?
Well, then you're screwed. Well, and that's the thing. They're playing the lottery. It's even though they're maximizing their odds, it's still a lottery.
Better than chasing 30 wins.
That is also very true. Lynnell, tonight, overtime, 6:30 over on 106.7 The Fan. Indeed. Dave Johnson with us next.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.